Welcome to Talksicology, brought to you by Recovery Unplugged, the place where we talk about all things substance abuse, recovery, and mental health, with guests offering varying perspectives and viewpoints. Hosts Joseph Gorordo and Jason Cabello share about their addiction and recovery and other serious subject matter through lighthearted yet candid conversation.
1, 2, 3, shoot. Ha!
You got
Fuck
me.
You go.
Welcome to Talksicology, folks. The best podcast in the known universe about all things substance abuse, addiction, recovery, and mental health. I got marbles in my mouth today. But good to be here. I am Jason Cabello, the co-host with the most. And as I've said it before, and I'll say it again, my esteemed host, Joseph Gorordo.
Hey.
Ladies and gentlemen, there he is. And we were just playing around on Urban Dictionary, and apparently Joseph, according to Urban Dictionary, is the best person in the entire world, the best human being that's ever existed.
But you're like a great boyfriend, according to Urban Dictionary. So,
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Folks at home, if you're ever bored, look up your name on Urban Dictionary. See what it says.
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I'd like to think I'm a pretty good partner.
I wonder who does that. Like, who are these people that randomly go to Urban Dictionary like, I'm gonna do?
There's just one guy sitting there with all the names. Like, as somebody types, it like comes down the tube. Hurry up, and he's typing up just a bunch of nice stuff about people.
Is this our 1 year episode? Is this episode
Could be
52?
52?
Is it? It might be. I have no idea.
Happy birthday.
I wish Greg was here
I wish Greg was here too.
because he would tell us.
I think it might be. So let's assume it's our birthday.
Episode 52.
Pew, 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 pew.
I mean, we could switch them around if we're wrong.
Yeah, we could. Wait, well, stay still. So then we could just video over our faces in the same clothes that we're wearing in case that it's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that. How you been, buddy?
I'm good.
Yeah?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm ready for Christmas.
Okay.
I'm ready for Christmas. I guess that makes this episode not evergreen, but
Yeah, it's, it's works in progress. But yeah, as am I. Looking forward to it. I love Christmas time.
Yeah.
I'm getting sad that it's almost over and it's not even over yet. That's the addict.
But it got cold in Austin finally, which is.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Do you get seasonal depression?
In the summer,
Really?
I fucking hate
So you-
anything over. We've discussed this before. Anything over 75 degrees, and I'm just a grumpy man.
So you have the emo variant
I
of seasonal depression.
Guilty as
Sunshine.
charged.
Oh,
Yes.
no.
But I do notice that like if it's dark and cold, I'll just get sleepy, but not depressed. But I prefer it over a hot, bright 80-degree day.
You know, I tend to get a little sad around the holidays.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't do it on purpose, but I get very reflective, like.
I don't think many people get sad on purpose.
No, like I don't, like I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, it's the end of the year. I need to assess.
Cry in your pumpkin latte.
No, yeah. Ugh, no pumpkin. But like for some folks, the end of the year is a time where they like reflect on their what they've accomplished that year and whatever, and then they kind of set goals and intentions for the new year. I don't do that, but my mind just naturally gets very reflective around this time.
Really, you're a big reflections guy.
Yeah, I think just people that we've lost.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Even just people that are still alive, but the relationship isn't there anymore. All that kind of stuff. I feel a lot of loss, a lot of feelings of loss.
Right.
But, it's weird.
See, I'm one of those people like getting clean in my 40s. I already feel like I'm on borrowed time.
Yeah.
And I don't like wasting time. So I tend to look on what I can do to better myself instead of getting pissed off about the things that I've done wrong or the things that make me sad. Like I try to be a move forward kind of. I try.
Yeah.
Doesn't come naturally, but that's what I think that's been the greatest asset that I've gained in my recovery is being patient and trying to
Like let go.
trying to stay in the moment, not future trip on things, but just continuing to put one foot in front of the other to, get some perpetual motion going. And, my commitment to my own recovery has been going really, really well.
Right now you're involved in service work at a district level now?
Well, I'm just bringing meetings into outside places that are not Recovery Unplugged because for a long time I was just doing service at Recovery Unplugged, and you hear a lot. You cannot make your job your recovery.
Oh, doesn't count. Doesn't count.
Yeah, if I'm picking up a paycheck for it, it's not service.
I used to be super, super involved in service work, like GSR, district stuff. I've even done some service work for NA.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't do it so much anymore.
I mean, you have 3 kids. You do a lot. It's not like you're, fuck you, recovery. Like I'm cured now. I don't need this bullshit. Like you do a lot. You have a really busy life.
So I was thinking about this earlier. I have certain albums that I only listen to in the wintertime.
Okay.
It's just something about them just feels right for when it's cold outside. And I was wondering,
I'm leaning in.
if you also have that.
I'm such a creature of habit when it comes to music. I listen to the same 10 albums all the time anyway. But I mean, I have my Christmas playlist is on point. I have a great Christmas playlist.
Did we talk about this last time?
I think I don't know if we talked about it on the show. Oh yeah, we did because we were talking about some the Kink song.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, I love Christmas music, but I love music that's Christmas adjacent too, because there's some songs that might have a sleigh bell in there or just mention something about Christmas, like Hazy Shade of Winter, the Bangles version of it.
Hazy Shade of Winter.
Fucking love that song. It's vibes.
Well, Hallelujah. If you're listening to the lyrics of Hallelujah,
absolutely.
People act like it's a Christmas song, but it's not a Christmas song. Because, sure, there's the whole thing about David and the chord and the Lord and all that. But, later on, Homeboy's getting tied to a kitchen chair.
Yeah.
She's cutting his hair from his lisp.
Do you have a favorite? That's a song that's been covered a million times. Do you have a favorite version?
I really like the Pentatonics version, man. Okay. I really, really do.
I think you're a fan. I think it's official.
Yeah.
Rufus Wainwright for me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't know he did one.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Old Rufus. He kind of fell off, didn't he?
No. Gabby and I got to see him a couple months back out here. He is just... He's doing opera now, so that's why he's stepped away from his piano stuff a little bit, but he's doing a lot of opera now.
Okay. Right on.
Yeah.
So...
Speaking of opera...
our guest today... world-renowned opera singer. No, you know what? I'm actually going to do...
Urban Dictionary.
Let's see what Urban Dictionary has to say about our guest today. Our guest is the duck overlord. He can perform mind control on ducks of all kinds. Here's his name used in a sentence. Look, it's Ben with his army of ducks again. So our guest today is a gentleman who goes by the name of Benjamin Irwin. He is the clinical manager at Recovery Unplugged's residential location here in Austin, Texas. He's a good dude in recovery, solid face tat collection, and and got sober really, really young.
Nice.
Yeah, he was actually 16 weeks old. I'm just kidding. But ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm Talksicology round of applause to Mr. Ben Irwin. Yay.
It's the duck overlord.
That goes great. So, Ben, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. We're excited to have you.
How's Recovery Unplugged Austin being run right now? If both the two guys, I was Brandon there holding shit down.
No, we take the most senior client, whoever's been to treatment the most of any treatment group, they know the most about treatment, and we put them in charge.
Mm-hmm. Disclaimer: Joseph does not know what he's talking about now.
I'm just kidding. Just total disclaimer. But Ben, we were just talking about Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason looked at me and said, "Save it for the podcast." I was like, "Okay,
fine."
fine."
Stealing the thunder here, and then
So, I mean, I was talking about how I met a lovely couple this weekend that was from Houston, and I inquired as to what type of ex-Houstonians they are. Because there's two categories, right? One group of Houston folks is they love Houston. They had to leave for whatever reason, but they love it and the passion, and they have Houston in their blood. And the other group thinks Houston is the armpit of Texas and don't ever want to go back. So you were starting to tell us about which category you fall into, Ben.
Right. Yeah. And I love Houston. I have some interesting Houston-based tattoos that I'll never get rid of. And yeah, I mean, it's where I grew up, born and raised. I love everything about the culture there, the diversity of Houston, everything, especially Houston rap.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's where I got clean. I have a lot of love for Houston, but obviously since it is where I got clean, there's a lot of trauma in Houston for sure. And so I think it was just time to end my chapter there, and start something new. Yeah. I had been in the same recovery community for over a decade.
Oh,
right?
Wow, yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
It gets stale, I guess.
Absolutely.
And you're not too far from home still, so.
No, it's super easy. I mean, I'll go there for 24 hours, if I need to. Yeah. Right. So
Houston's, I think I also have some trauma in Houston because when I was 17 or 18, I had a bone tumor that apparently was rare enough that the folks at MD Anderson were willing to do it for free, cut it off for free so that they could study it. Wow. Yeah, you didn't know this.
No, I didn't.
This is new information. And so that was my first real experience with Houston, aside from visiting every now and then, was I'm in a hospital and they're cutting open my leg.
And they kept the tumor.
They kept the tumor and they sent me home with a big old bottle of Vicodin.
Nice.
Do you still have access to that tumor? Can you go and do you know? Did they ever send you any updates? Here's what happened.
No,
or they just took it. And
they just took it.
They own it now.
They just took it. Yeah.
They cloned little baby Josephs running all around Houston.
Oh man, that would be rough. But so Ben, Houston, born and raised.
Houston, born and raised. Yeah, 1995.
Yeah, 95. So you're 27.
27.
Oh
yeah,
man,
November. Yep. My folks, they were raised in Illinois, the Midwest.
Oh, really?
And not cool parts.
Thought I detected a little Midwest accent there.
Yeah, I'm sure it's there.
Above a Houston accent, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's there still. But yeah, my folks were born and raised up there. I lived there for a couple of years when I was, 4 to 7 or something like that. But other than that, it's Houston. When I was about 15, 16, that's a big part of my story actually is my family moved away. My mom, brother, and sister all moved to Illinois. And I was there with my dad for a while.
So parents split up?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
What was your home life like before that? Was good home life? You said brother and sister, so a couple siblings, what?
Yeah. I'm the oldest of 3. My little brother's 10 years younger than me, so quite a bit.
Okay.
A big difference there. And my little sister's 3.5, 4 years younger than me. But yeah, we were, I guess, middle class, so nothing crazy there, but, I don't know, there really isn't middle class, upper, lower class, and then rich, right?
Yeah.
So, that's kind of how we grew up. I guess we, my family kind of got trapped in the housing market thing in 2008, so we were definitely we definitely felt at least as kids, we had more money than we thought we did, or, we thought we had more money than we actually did. And didn't really start seeing the cracks of that until I was older. But yeah, my childhood was pretty good. There were definitely things that I had to deal with later, but it was one of those things where I didn't really understand that they were things I was going to have to deal with until later.
What part of Houston were you in? Because Houston's humongous. If somebody's never been there before, from the east side to the west side of Houston is
hour and 45 minutes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You can't get anywhere quick. I grew up in what is Cypress now. I guess I don't think it was I guess it was Cypress, Northwest Houston. So
So, what kind of kid were you? Were you a good kid? Because we talk a lot about, the ism before the alcohol, and I was kind of a shitty kid before the drugs, Jason.
Still a shitty kid.
Still a shitty kid, So, like, what about you? I mean, what kind of child were you coming up? Yeah.
Real shitty. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I was one of those kids. I think you see that a lot of this. I mean, I worked with adolescents for a long time, and you see a lot of this with adolescents. I was like in gifted and talented programs when I was like in elementary school, right? I have a theory that that's just where they put the shitty kids to just like kind of keep them. Yeah, yeah.
Like, he's shitty because he's not being challenged.
Right.
Yeah, he's bored.
He's smart, but
he's setting fires, but he's bored.
I was in GT also, and Jason was actually in the emotionally
handicapped in the 80s. That's what they would call what they were in. Because I was one of those kids too. In fourth grade, I was reading at a high school level.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Still can't do math for shit. Mm-hmm. So I was like gifted in some parts, and then I would get into like fights and stuff like that, or I would just not listen. I would just not do work, and that's emotionally handicapped is what they called me.
Yeah.
No damage done there.
So you were a GT kid.
I was. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't apply himself, but he's so smart, and so that was the monologue that I heard all the time.
Would you do the thing where like you were failing all your classes, but every time the standardized tests rolled around, you aced them?
Totally. Yeah. We started, what was it, tax testing when I was in third grade, and just never had a problem doing that stuff. But other than that, I was always in trouble,
I think there's something there for sure, like in this theory of like, not being challenged, or maybe like smarter, or just maybe more perceptive kids and end up doing drugs.
Well, also being told that you have so much potential, right? And you're so smart and talented. And I think that as soon as you start making mistakes and getting consequences, there might be something going on saying, that there's some shame attached to that, right? That I'm not living up to my potential, like I'm supposed to be this smart kid and be successful. And so when I'm struggling, it's just seen as like laziness, or at least to me, that's what it's seen as. So I think there's something to that for sure.
I talk about that a lot too if I take a meeting into like rehabs or whatever, or talk to people who are just like newcomers, just getting clean and sober. It's like when I was I got clean at 42, and I thought that when people told me that I had potential, I thought it was a compliment. Mm-hmm. And then after I did some work on myself, I'm like, oh, that was not a compliment at all, telling me that I have potential. But
they're telling you that you're wasting your potential.
Exactly.
Mm. So smart kid, didn't want to do his work.
No.
Okay. So when do alcohol and drugs start to enter the picture?
So, my parents weren't real drinkers, right? But we always had alcohol in the garage fridge, that just has drinks in it. We always had alcohol in there. So it was just like stealing real crap beer, Miller Lite or whatever, and stockpiling it slowly in my closet. So it was warm also. Loved it. And that started really young. 6th grade was the first time. So however old you are in 6th grade, 12 or something. Right. Yeah. And then weed came a little bit later in junior high.
And do you remember I started drinking and sneaking some weed pretty young as well. Mm-hmm. And, for me, I remember feeling very awkward and out of place and insecure, and noticing very quickly that like the alcohol and drugs handled that for me. Was there any kind of impulse behind, or was it just kind of simple curiosity? Like, I'm gonna steal some beer because.
Yeah, I think some of it was just like, this seems cool, right? Like a lot of that. Definitely smoking weed was not something that was cool. Like all of my friends in junior high were very judgmental of me smoking weed, expressing concern, which is like strange for like a 13-year-old, like we're really worried about you.
13-year-olds don't care about shit.
No, but what are you doing? I'm telling them at 13, 14 years old, well, this is all I'm doing. I'm not going to touch anything else, but they were already talking to me like I was a dope fiend.
Yeah. Your circle of friends are pretty advanced, though.
They were,
They're like sitting you down and stuff.
Right. And I was like, y'all are
PE
dweebs.
and saying like, we're really worried about you, man. We think you might have a problem.
So I found new friends, that would enable that for sure, But yeah, didn't really get in any trouble though in junior high. I got in a lot of trouble, just not for drugs.
Yeah.
A lot of trouble. That's where the behavioral stuff cranked it up. It wasn't just talking. It was like throwing desks at teachers and like being suspended for huge amounts of time and fighting and all that. That's where the anger really came in. And that's when I started to realize that smoking weed was like a way to just sedate all of those feelings.
Yeah. So you had like some, like, what do you think it was? Anger?
Yeah, super angry, belligerent kid and drunk. Made all of that worse. That's how I got when I was drunk from the beginning. I think a lot of that was, it's kind of what I was taught. If my dad ever listens to this, I don't think he'd be offended if I said that, he had a temper, growing up, probably still does. And I think that's just a learned thing, that I had that like, that was how you expressed emotion. Mm-hmm. And then of course, like through media and stuff like that, I mean, it was still for men, it was like that also.
Well, I think even today, like it's still pretty, the expectation from society, right, is that men either you can be angry or you can be happy. And those are kind of the two acceptable emotions. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you guys, I feel like I'm a pretty sensitive dude. Like I'm in touch with my emotions or whatever. But I do also find that sometimes, like even like the people in my life, like they want you to be vulnerable, but sometimes not so much. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Like if you try to unpack some sadness, sometimes like society or my wife, other people in my life are like, don't know how to handle that coming from a man.
Especially because you're, at least from what I know of you, you're a pretty even-keeled guy.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like you keep your emotions in check. Not in a bad way, not like you keep them suppressed, but you seem like you could handle tough situations. You could handle this. So when that breaks, it's like,
oh shit.
Yeah. Like, do you have like a long fuse and then when it's there, I could see that in you. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, it's something I had to work on. Right. And thankfully I got into that work, very young, and it's progress. I mean, it's something that I have to work on all the time. There are still like triggers for me where my fuse is non-existent. But then for the most part, I can keep it. I'm also very good at compartmentalizing, which we have to get good at in here. So,
at what point were you thinking like, man, my sixth grade friends might be right. I think I might have, they might be onto something. I think I might have some issues here.
Sometime in high school, I think adolescents do this, but I think anyone who, starts using definitely addictively, and develops some sort of substance use disorder, like we have that line that we draw in the sand that we'll never cross, and for me, that was weed and alcohol. And then as soon as I got into high school, that line got pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And before I knew it, I got rid of the line, and that
you snorted it.
Yeah, I snorted the line. And I just became a dumpster, for dope. Like, and that's not a specific drug. It's just all encompassing
whatever
right
you
there.
got.
Yeah, it was whatever you gave me, and so DOC is always a tough question for me. Alcohol and weed was always there, so that's my go-to, but I would take whatever you gave me, and I wouldn't ask what it is.
And so when you got to that, like as your boundaries that you set for yourself continue to change and change, like did that come with like kind of like some negative self-talk of like, oh man, like this is fucking dumb, like I'm getting worse, this is bad? Or was it just like you went with it and it felt good? It was just who you are and you were just changed? Because I used to tell myself that I just changed my mind a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any negative self-talk got deleted by drugs, And so anytime I ever felt some type of way about the way that I used, I changed my environment or what I was doing in that moment. And stop thinking about it entirely.
Was there a fork in the road when, for any one time when you were like, okay, so this is a turning point here. If I do this is just everything that I've always said that I would never do. This is the end of it. Like, I can't really get much further than that. Was there a one moment when you made that conscious decision to go left instead of right?
Yes, it was. I think that was in high school, freshman year, when I got offered something that wasn't weed or alcohol. I got offered ecstasy, and
that's what you kids call Molly now.
Oh yeah, we didn't have that. That was our stuff was laced with ibuprofen and stuff. But yeah, this guy was like, had this bag full of colored pills, and I was just like, give me,
Yes, please.
And that's something that's pretty common in my stories. There was not a second thought.
Mm-hmm.
It was, my first thought was, I don't care, I want it, and didn't think about it again after that. And then thought about it later, like, what am I doing?
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. To go back to your question a few ago, but was there a moment that I thought about the 6th grade friends? Yeah, I mean, there was several. The first time was when my parents split, or when they sat us down to tell us, right, we're splitting up. And I had this, dream in my head of, we all moved back to Illinois, and I was able to like not have a drug dealer, not have the same friends, and I could start over.
Yeah.
I could be a new person. And I was thinking this at 15. And so I presented that idea to my family. Hey, what if we all move back to Illinois? We're close with family. Y'all are getting a divorce. Like, isn't that a great idea? And they thought, yeah, you're right. That is a good idea. Let's do that. And I tried it for a couple months. We went up there, and I found drugs really fast.
Yeah.
Really fast.
Where in Illinois were you?
I was in the Quad Cities, so it's on the border of Illinois and Iowa.
Okay.
And I was in a town called Moline, so not a cool part of Illinois.
Getting out there in the sticks.
Just not Chicago.
Yeah. It's not exactly.
Yeah.
That's the cool part of Illinois, and everything else is not Chicago.
Like farmland.
Yeah.
So at this point in time in your life, right? Like, Illinois was almost like a little like a perfect kind of idyllic sort of setting where you were like, if we would just move to Illinois, everything would be okay. Right.
But you had the rare opportunity, because most people have that Illinois place in their head to be like, if only I could just get myself here out of there. And you had that like come to fruition to be like, and your family saying like, yeah, let's do this. And then you get there, and then how long until you find something there that...
So my grandpa was an alcoholic, so I started drinking a few days after I got there. So I think I had put together like 4 or 5 days. My dad and I went up there early that summer, and then, I ended up going back, once school started, and never stayed. Yeah. And then my mom ended up going with my brother and sister. So,
but to somebody out there who's still listening or may not personally know what it feels like to be an addict or an alcoholic, 5 days is pretty substantial, especially if you're a kid and partying is your thing. Like, if you could put together 5 days worth of thing, did that give you any hope when you eventually, made the decision to?
Absolutely. I had the delusions of grandeur at the time. I was able to throw away everything I had in Houston, and get ready for this move, and, got up there, and I just got bored.
Yeah.
I just got bored, and that's why I started drinking again. And I thought, there's the line.
I could drink. I could handle my drinking. I'm in a new place. It's okay if I have a beer here and there, or, a warm Miller Lite that'll sneak into my bedroom. And
yeah. I don't have any friends here yet. So, school hasn't started. It's like, this is no big deal.
There's nobody to get in trouble with. Right.
Right. Yeah. My grandpa's up there doing the same thing. So.
But you said you got bored, and one thing that people talk about, or that we talk about in the rooms a lot, right? And especially, Big Book talks about feeling of being irritable, restless, and discontent. And I think a lot of people struggle to understand that, like, for alcoholics and addicts, like, that's kind of our default setting, right? Irritable, restless, and discontent. And And especially at that age, I'm sure it seemed like the only way that you knew of to fix that feeling
Right.
was to drink or use, right? So what ends up happening that you go back to Houston with just your dad?
Yeah, so my mom decided that she wanted my brother and sister to finish out that like school year before transitioning because they had already gone back to school. And so my dad and I kind of had this conversation where I was like, I'm sad. I miss them. I can't wait that long, so I want to go back. And he just agreed, so I went back with my mom and my dad eventually made his way back down. And so, I was just there until, and the tentative plan was my mom's going to, we're all going to leave in about a year or so.
Yeah. And so then when does things start to go, when do you start to realize like, this shit's going wrong, something needs to change, like I can't keep living like this? When does that start to enter into your mindset? Or did it?
It totally did. Yeah. So, the end of that freshman year, I got arrested for the first time. That was a big thing for me because my girlfriend broke up with me too because I got arrested.
Yeah, she can't be dating no felon.
Right. There was that. And also she didn't know that I was using because I lied to her about it. And so not only did I get arrested, but she also found out I was using through that. And, then there was everything that happened over the summer. And then sophomore year, I had to finish out some alternative school stuff. And then when I went back, I knew there was a problem at that point. When I looked around, I had lost a lot of relationships, a lot of friendships. One of the things that I did was theater. And I had been kicked out of almost every show that I auditioned for and got a role in.
Was it the face tattoos?
It wasn't at the time. We covered that up with makeup. No, I didn't have any tattoos. But yeah, so that's when I started to, really think about it. And like I said earlier, just dismiss it as quickly as I could because I just didn't want to make any changes. And yeah, the big turning point was I had a friend of mine come up to me and we haven't really discussed this, but my parents were in the most denial I've ever seen. And I worked with teenagers for 7 years. And I'd never seen any other parents in that much denial, but they believed everything I said as far as I'm holding it for someone. And eventually I didn't
bought that one?
Oh yeah.
Nobody buys that one.
My parents bought that one. I'm very good also, Joseph.
Yeah, you're
a theater background.
I was a theater kid. Yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis, very compatible. But yeah, they believed everything I said. And eventually I didn't even have to say it anymore. My parents found some drugs in my wallet and in some of my clothes. And my mom was like, "Why are you still holding drugs for people?" And I didn't even have to say anything. And so it was pretty sweet. I was great at it. And
I've never heard that before.
Yeah. So that was the thing is there wasn't any motivation from home to make changes because they just thought that I was, just up to no good, hanging out with the wrong people.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because what I'm getting out of your story is that sounds like you surrounded yourself by some pretty good people, some friends in sixth grade who are going to tell you you need to get your shit together. A girl in high school who doesn't think it's cool that you're getting arrested and using drugs.
She wasn't yeah, my boyfriend's a bad boy.
Yeah. So, that was one good thing, one good decision that you were making back then, at least to surround yourself with good people.
Yeah. And I think that there was always a part of me that didn't want to live like that and make those decisions and have that lifestyle. And so that's who I was attracted to, and that's who I attracted. And so that also didn't help the shame and guilt that I felt because I was always lying to everyone that was close to me. And yeah, then, the big, when I went, I guess, left instead of right was I had a friend of mine come up to me and say, "Hey, are you still using?" He didn't say that. He said, "Are you getting high?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, you want to go smoke or something?" And he's like, no, I got clean over the summer. My parents took me to this like outpatient program. And I can't talk to you, cause it was people, places and things for him.
Yeah.
And he was like, I can't talk to you if you're still using, but I'd love for you to come to one of these meetings with me. And I said, fuck no, I'm not doing that. And when I grew up with this friend of mine, he was like a church kid, right? And so I assumed that's what it was, some church thing.
Yeah.
Thought about it for a couple weeks and ended up going. And
so you took him up on the invitation to go to this group,
right? Yeah,
sober kids.
Yeah, and I told my parents that I was going to support him, right? Because he was doing drugs, and you had
been holding his drugs.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I was like, I'm going to these like meetings. I may have even said that it was some church thing, but I'm going to support him. My parents thought that was great. Go support your friend, and
we're so proud of you, Mijito, for
right,
being there for your friend.
And so I did that. I did that for months, probably 3 or 4 months, without telling my parents that it was for me.
How long until they noticed that you weren't holding drugs for anybody anymore?
Well, hold on. It's like, did you immediately stop using when you started going to these meetings, or how long did it take you before you stopped using?
Right. I had a few relapses. I got 26 days and then had my first relapse, got 5 days, had my second, and then got a few more days, I think, and then had my last relapse. And it was how they describe it for sure. That last relapse, I kind of woke up the morning that I stopped using drugs, because that one lasted a few days. And I was just like, I can't live like this. I'd been up for a few days, and my ex-girlfriend, who was very against me getting arrested and using drugs, came and picked me up and took me home. And I just told her, I can't do this anymore. Called my sponsor and, didn't admit to the relapse because I wasn't ready for that, but I was ready to start working the steps.
And so this group that you went to, was it a 12-step group? Was it like a teen group? Like what exactly was it?
So they're all over at this point, but it was what's called an alternative peer group. And it's a model that's been around for a while. The program that I got into was, I guess you could consider it kind of an outpatient program, but really it was just like AA for adolescents. It was a free program, which was great because I didn't have to tell my parents about it for a long time. But also there was just not a ton of like rigidity to it. It was kind of, here are the tools. If you want it, you can get it. If not, leave. And it was entirely 12-step based. We went to a lot of outside meetings. The curriculum was 12 steps. You had access to a therapist, but there was like 80 kids and one therapist. So good luck. But yeah.
So what surprises me is like, you get 80 kids who like to drink and do drugs together under the guise of, trying to do better. Mm-hmm. How do you not end up with just 80 kids trying to like do drugs together?
So you end up with 40 trying to do drugs together, and then you end up with 40 who really, are in it, trying to stay sober.
And you were never attracted to the 40 that were doing drugs? Like you immediately saw something in the kids that were getting sober? Maybe
not immediately. And then there was waves too. Because I get addicted to anything that makes me happy. One of those other things being the ladies, right? And so oftentimes the 40 that were, up to no good had some lady that I was into. So hung out with them and got up to no good. But thankfully I got lucky a lot and didn't end up using. So
you got lucky a lot.
I got lucky a lot. Oh, not around the ladies. I got lucky that I didn't use, but
so
yeah.
So I have to assume that like the rest of your high school career probably looked a little different from not regular kids, from your average high school career, being that you got sober because you were 16 when you stopped, right?
I did. Yeah, 16.
So like, how did that start to? Because that's a rough patch of time even when you're not getting high.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
Yeah. I mean, when I tell people my age or roughly my age, or I guess just anyone, because I don't have any perspective, you know, because I never experienced anything different. But yeah, my high school career was chaos, even after getting clean. And yeah, it looked a lot different. For the rest of that sophomore year, I stayed in traditional high school. And my behaviors were getting worse as after the drugs were removed because I hadn't replaced them with a ton of stuff yet. Yeah, so I was doing a lot of, crimes, you know, committing a lot of crimes.
Crime? Yeah.
And nothing super like hurtful or harmful to people, but you know, fun felonies, I guess.
A little vandalism, a little shoplifting.
Joyrides.
Yeah. Taking gasoline and like setting parking garages on fire.
Yeah.
They don't burn down, right? It's concrete.
Yeah.
We're fine.
Arson.
But you can spell your name. So stuff like that. But
It's a good thing your name's short. Just Ben. Right?
yeah. I mean, if it was long, you'd have to go fast. But yeah, so I did a lot of that year. It was fun. I mean, it was some of the most fun I've ever had, which was the goal. I mean, it was like stay sober, and if you're doing that, do whatever you want. And I don't know if that's, you know, the best or whatever. You know, I'm sure you could.
Well, I think like, you know, when you're an adolescent, like that's the pitch, right? It's like, don't do drugs and everything else is cool, man. Like, you know, as an adult, I don't think that's the right message necessarily. But.
Yeah, I mean, that was the toughest part, being in it for me, and also working in it, was finding that balance between doing the work, taking it seriously, and trying to have fun, because I mean, that it's a pendulum that is one way or the other for a lot of people. And it doesn't work if you're too serious, but it also doesn't work, if you're having, you know, fun nonstop. And so, yeah, that was a difficult thing for me to like strike a balance with. But yeah, I don't know, that sophomore year was a lot of fun. And then my junior year got kind of tumultuous because that's when my mom left. I got really depressed. My dad and I moved into our own apartment. Some stuff that I had never really done started popping up, some self-harm stuff. I was never really like, I never saw a psychiatrist or anything, and I started doing that. Just started causing a lot of problems, you know, behavioral stuff that was hurting people, being very like selfish with my actions, around relationships, friendships, anything. And I had missed, 50 days of school halfway through this, you know, that school year. And the social worker at the school, not the guidance counselor who you never see, but the social worker pulled me into her office and basically said, your dad's going to get arrested for truancy, or you're going to go to a different school. Like, you have to make a decision. And he didn't know that I was missing all this school. So
it wasn't like today. Today, if your kid misses school, you get a text message.
Right. Well, they had a phone number that I gave them, which was my home phone number that we didn't have anymore. That was on purpose, you know?
Well,
smart.
What I really like about your story, though, is, you know, a lot of people think that like getting sober just means all of a sudden you're like Boy Scout, Girl Scout, you know, whatever, but just like, you know, a good, healthy, happy citizen. And that's not necessarily the case. And I think,
you don't have to stop setting parking lots on fire necessarily.
No, but I'm just saying, you know, like it's okay to have struggles and new challenges that arise throughout recovery, you know, and it's not just like, oh, I'm better now. Like, and I think a lot of the times when I'm working with someone who's in early recovery, you know, they'll be like 60 days sober and be like, I don't understand why I'm still like this. And it's like, so I think you sharing all that really helps to kind of normalize, like, you know, there's still stuff.
Right. And there always will be, right? Like, there's always going to be something that I can work on. And I mean, yeah, when I work with whether it's sponsees or just clients coming through treatment or whatever, it's like one thing at a time, like let's not load up our plate with too much. Because a lot of times we get clients, like they get clean through detox or whatever, and then they want to quit smoking. They don't want to talk to women for 30 days. They, want to go on a diet and start exercising every day. Right. And it's just like
8 days in, they have their life plan ahead of them and all these changes they need to make. And
and on day 9, they get high.
And then they figure out exactly what they have to do and then want to go home.
Mm-hmm.
So what have been some of your biggest challenges, since, you've been sober 11 years now?
11 years,
wow.
yeah.
11 years, so if it hasn't all been rainbows and unicorns, what have been the challenges? You obviously still had a lot of growing up to do, get your prefrontal cortex to finish forming, right?
Still getting there.
No, you're 27. You're good on the prefrontal.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
But, what have been some of those challenges?
The first big one was family. And yeah, it was managing me and my dad's relationship with just us, and also dealing with any trauma that came out of my mom and brother and sister leaving. Resentment. There's a lot of that there. And that was a huge challenge that took years to get through, and every once in a while that still pops up. And that's the thing about trauma, is you're never done. And yeah, I think graduating high school is a big one, because I went from being in this bubble, right? Because I transitioned into a sober high school after that social worker got involved. And, I'm in this bubble where I'm either at a sober school or I'm at my little group after school. And then I graduate and I don't have either one of those things. And it's like, I don't have a home group in AA to go to. That was a huge challenge.
Yeah.
I didn't go to meetings for a long time after that. And then a lot of my friends started dying after high school because of that, graduating and not having anything. A lot of them relapse. And yeah.
It's almost like, because when you graduate high school, it's like, okay, pin in that, we're done with the high school thing. So for some of them, that kind of overlaid onto the recovery thing almost.
Totally.
It's like, I finished, I graduated.
Right. And down in Houston, we've gotten a lot, I say we, but that community has gotten a lot better at bridging that gap. But for a long time, there was no bridge, It was like, once you graduated, you had to figure it out. And yeah, I had experienced 1 or 2 big death, when I was in high school, of someone that I knew in recovery, another teenager. And then after graduating, and it's kind of the nature of being in recovery, people that are in recovery definitely understand that death is something.
We go to more funerals than normal people do.
Can you tell us about the first one that you experienced?
Yeah, the first one that I experienced, you mean in high school or after?
In high school.
In high school.
In high school, it was this kid who completed suicide after relapsing. He was in another program, but at the same, was always around the community. And it was pretty surreal. The first person I knew that died, besides great grandpa or something, right?
Right. Somebody your own age.
Right. And I was at the sober high school, and we shut down for that day. We went to school, and then we had this big, community meeting where we talked about it.
Because the whole school knew this kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Except for, a new kid or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, the whole school knew this kid, and we just took care of each other that day. And we didn't go to class. The teachers came by and talked to us and stuff like that. And that kid, the group that he was in, a lot of them were given the opportunity to leave and go to their satellite, which is where they have meetings and stuff. And the rest of us, we just kind of hung out and took care of each other. And it was very surreal. I wanted to feel a lot more than I was, because everyone else was, you
thought you weren't sad enough.
Totally. Yeah. It was definitely a lesson in grief, and how we deal with it, and how we just don't have any control over how we deal with it. and the emotions that come with it. So yeah, I didn't know that it was going to be something that I was going to have to experience a lot. But yeah, I mean, at this point in my life, I've been to over 30, and that was after deciding 3 years ago that I was going to stop going. So I haven't been to one in 3 years. And yeah, that was one of the biggest challenges. It's also was a huge motivator for me moving to Austin. I just couldn't be in that community anymore because we knew it takes someone special, I think, to work in that community, specifically the adolescent recovery community. And we know so many adolescents. We meet hundreds a year and develop these relationships. I mean, I've worked with kids for 5 years, before, saw them graduate high school from start to finish. And yeah, it's, most humans aren't built for that.
No.
And I'm not, at least not long-term. And that was probably one of the biggest challenges I've had to deal with in recovery. And it's not that it goes away now, but it's different for sure.
So you've mentioned your sober high school a couple times, and for our listeners at home who aren't familiar with, maybe you've never even heard of a sober high school,
right? Yeah.
What is that like? How is that different from your traditional high school? I imagine kind of like a small, close knit community, but like what is the sober high school?
Right.
What do they do? Yeah.
So, I mean, the similarities to a traditional high school are few and far between. We have classes, right? But yeah, going from onto like a 4,000 population traditional high school to a school that was less than 100. And it was in a church, in the medical center of Houston. And yeah, we had 3-4 kids, in a class at a time. There was one English teacher, who also taught photography or whatever, right? There was no extracurriculars, because you went to your meetings after school. First period was an elective, and it was check-in. And that was, we got graded on that, how we participated in check-in and gave feedback and all that. There was coffee served during first period.
Yeah.
We had, if the director of the school sees this, she'll get very upset. But we had smoke breaks years ago. They don't do that anymore. But back then we did.
Was it kind of a look the other way kind of deal?
It was a don't ask, don't tell. Yeah. If they ever saw the nicotine products, like they would take them, but they knew what we were doing on off-campus lunch.
Yeah.
That was another thing, off-campus lunch, which we did not have in traditional high school at this point. And the biggest difference was the support staff. So these were people with either recovery coaching certificates or LCDCs or higher, obviously. We had access to them at any point in the day. I think when I was a senior there, we probably had 5, including the director of the school. And these were, not one-on-one therapists, but they were somebody that at any point during the day, we felt some type of way where we didn't feel like we were going to be able to be in class. We would ask to speak to them, and it was no questions asked for the teachers. They immediately called, and the support staff either came and got us or we were sent down to go talk to them. And there's no consequences for that or anything like that. We talk to them for as long as we need. Maybe we're given some time alone or, whatever we need to do. And then the goal is to get us back to class where we can be in class. And yeah, I mean, it's a huge thing. It's a game changer,
How would they prevent people from, because I feel like I would have just been like, I feel like I got to talk to somebody just to get out of class.
So it's not on the teachers to figure that out. It's on the support staff to figure that out. And they were good at that,
So like eventually be like, Ben, you shut the fuck up, go back to class.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it would take us 5 seconds, because I ended up working there a couple of times for a while. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't tough. The kid gets down there and they say what they need and you're just like, get the fuck out of here. Go back to history, John. And if they did it enough, we had behavioral contracts, which I think most people would understand. But yeah, it would be like, stop fucking asking for support. Like you can't have it. You can come down here in between classes and that's it, for the rest of the semester because you took advantage of it. So yeah.
Makes sense.
What's the world coming to, drug addict kids at the sober high school taking advantage of.
It's wild. Yeah.
Man, I feel like we could talk a lot more about the sober high school thing, but we are kind of getting towards the end of our time that we have today. So should we do it? Yeah, we should do it. We're going to do something now called rapid fire question time. Pew, pew, pew.
It's rapid fire question time.
So real simple, Ben. We're going to take turns asking you 5 questions. They are going to be rapid fire from us, and therefore you should try to answer them as quickly as possible. You want to go first? I'll go first. What's your favorite Sad Boy Winter album?
Sad Boy Winter album. Homesick by Day to Remember.
Favorite Houston rapper?
Oh, I hate that you asked that. Lil Flip.
Lil Flip.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Or J-Dog, just because he's so gangster still. And he's not dead.
This is the way we ball. That's Lil Flip, right?
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
All right, Ben and Jerry's comes to you and they say, Ben, we want to make a flavor for you, but the problem is you've only got 5 minutes to decide what goes in it and what the flavor is going to be called. Go.
It's graham crackers, and that's it. I want the ice cream to be graham cracker flavored with pieces of graham cracker in it, and it would be called Graham Central Station. The reason it's called that, there's an ice cream up north that's called that, and I don't think anyone would know that it was stolen from them. But you can't call it anything else. That's just
That's
too
pretty good. Yeah.
Graham cracker ice cream with graham crackers in it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Graham crackers.
Yeah.
All right. Time travel vacation. You could go anywhere, anytime. Where would it be and when?
Past or future?
Oh, past.
Past. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. How would I know? I would love to be an observer of the French Revolution.
Yeah, that's there.
Just from afar.
From
you
a
don't want
drone.
to get in there and, guillotine a couple aristocrats or anything?
I mean, I would love to. Yeah. Okay. Participant. Participant. Yeah.
I heard they had a lot of cake back then.
You can eat it.
They did. Yeah. In the chimneys.
How many days sober do you have?
Can I check?
Nope.
I don't know. Probably close to 14,000, I think.
Wrong.
Super wrong.
For
Super
sure.
wrong.
I mean, unless there's 1,000 days in a year.
Yeah. What would it be? Oh, like
Even then, it would only
3,300.
be like 11,000.
It'd be like 4,000, something like that.
Maybe.
It's got to be.
I don't know, but that's much closer than 14.
Well, if there was 300 days in a year times 11, that's like 3,300, right?
Yeah.
So it's got to be around 4,000.
This is definitely not the mathletic department.
No.
here.
No, I went to a sober high school, so I didn't take calculus or anything. It wasn't offered.
They just go over the metric system of weight. Like, no, not even metric system.
No.
The way we
Grams.
yeah, the way we learned algebra 2 was craps.
Yeah.
They taught us how to play craps. I'm
In
not
emotional
kidding.
handicap classes, they just gave us Connect 4. Have fun.
Last but not least, Ben, we like to give our guests one last opportunity to just kind of like say whatever you want.
Oh, okay.
We have a platform with dozens upon dozens of listeners.
Yeah.
What's your message to them today?
That's so tough. Being, put on the spot. But I guess find community. That's my biggest thing. There's not enough emphasis on it. Everyone says go to meetings, work the steps, call your sponsor. No, find community. Show up 15 minutes early, leave 15 minutes late, and you'll stay sober. You'll get it.
Love it. I like that.
That's
I like
really
that.
good.
I think the world could use a little bit more community.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could.
And for somebody who's seemingly really good at surrounding himself by good people.
Oh,
in
that's
the-
right. Yeah, oof. Bring that back
Yeah.
around.
like that.
A lot of those
Thank you.
sixth graders are up to no good, by the way, now.
Are they?
Yeah. So,
Oh boy.
yeah.
Man.
Have you had the chance? Sorry to go back into it. Have you had the chance to turn it around and be like, "Listen, man,
There's a couple of them who have reached out.
That's
For help since then. There
you
is.
tell them that Recovery Unplugged is ready to help. We're in network with most major insurances with virtual
do.
IOP
Yeah.
options as well.
Here's my Zoom ID. It's 150 an hour.
or just go to a meeting 15 minutes early."
You could do that.
No, go to Recovery.
Here's Ryan
Okay, go to
Spencer's number.
Let's put Ryan Spencer's phone number on there.
If
There you
somebody
go.
says his name
Lower
one
third.
more time, he's going to walk through that door.
That's true. Yeah. It's like,
Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
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 Or Candyman. Yeah.
Candyman.
Ryan Spencer. No. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, that brings us to the end of our time today. Ben, thank you again so much for taking time out of your day to come out here and share a little bit of your story with us and with all of our loyal listeners online. And to our loyal listeners, thank you so much for being here. Please don't forget to like, follow, share, and
Subscribe.
leave us a review. Subscribe.
Website's up and running.
Facebook, YouTube, website,
Toxicologypod.com.
toxicologypod.com is up and running. And as we like to say here on Toxicology, there's 1,000 ways in and 1,000 ways out. And we hope you find yours.